Okay.
Can you see that? Can we see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So today we will talk about equity versus equality and their relation to efficiency. So these are some of the definitions that we thought that it is important to highlight. So equity is the quality of being fair and impartial. Equality is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, or opportunities. And efficiency is the ability to avoid wasting materials, energy, efforts, money, and time in producing a desired result. So how are they all connected? Economic efficiency and equity have an inverse relationship. So the maximization of efficiency of an economy leads to a reduction in its equity, as in how equitably its wealth or income is distributed. So efficiency means that society is getting the maximum benefits from its scarce resources. And equality means that those benefits are distributed uniformly among society's members. And in some cases, pursuing equality could lead to inefficiency, as it could be too costly for the economy, and some individuals may know how to use the scarce resources more efficiently compared to the others. On the other side, equality is associated with faster economic growth, as it provides individuals with equal opportunities and resources.
So an example of equity is like the income tax, which is a form of direct tax. This is where like different income brackets have different percentage tax rate, and a higher income has a higher tax rate. So it allows like the proportion to be removed similar across all the brackets. And if like the same percent or value like was removed from each income bracket, obviously it will affect the lower income bracket more than it will affect the higher income brackets, because the percentage removed would be much smaller, like monetary value in like the higher income earners.
Another case study that we chose, which relates to the key concept equality, is GST, also known as Goods and Services Tax. GST is a form of indirect tax which equally tax on all consumers and businesses with the standard rate of 6%. With the use of GST, consumers and businesses will all pay the same rate of tax, regardless of their income. Therefore, it affects all low, middle, and high income earners equally. Many domestically consumed items such as fresh food, water, and electricity are zero rated, while some supplies such as education and health services are GST exempted.
So like income tax may reduce like the incentive to like want to get promoted, obviously, because it gives off the perception that the more you earn, the more you have to pay in income tax. So obviously that reduces the incentive to be more efficient in the workplace. And the reduction in income overall may cause a decrease in real GDP, because there is less disposable income to spend, especially in the lower income, because you are taking a proportion of you're taking a proportion of their income. So if ceteris paribus, this probably will cause the AD to decrease, and then the general price level to decrease as well with it. It would shift left, and it should cause a deflationary gap. So it would obviously like the demand for goods isn't high enough, and then producers and suppliers don't want to employ employees anymore to produce products that aren't getting sold. So they would let go of their workers, and then therefore like employment rate can increase above the natural rate of unemployment, and efficiency may decrease.
GST stimulates the economy by encouraging people to work more, as there is no tax penalty for earning more. So there's more equitable income distribution. Therefore, it increases efficiency and allowing the economy to produce at the greatest possible amount of output with its resources. In addition, businesses are likely to invest and spend more in the GST tax system, as there will be a price drop in capital goods and assets, which will lead to efficiency too. However, GST will cause heavy tax burden on middle to low income earners and increase the gap between the rich and the poor, which can lead to further frustration and anger. Therefore, it decreased the incentive to work among the lower and middle income earners, which can lead to unemployment and a decrease in efficiency.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. Thank you. I think we're done.
Well done, team. That was really well done. I'm very impressed. Well done. It is a big challenge, that idea of trying to find policies and analyse them in relation to equity and efficiency, as well as equality. And the usage of those terms politically, but also in the news media, is going to be a bit interchangeable, the equality and the equity sort of idea. So well done. All right, well done. Now, do we have any others who are ready to present, or are we going to wait for tomorrow for the next round? Where are we up to?
I think for our group, I think some of the slides need to be completed. So like the group task, I think it'll be definitely ready by tomorrow.
Okay, that's no problem. No problem at all. All right, so look forward to that for tomorrow. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Now we're going to jump then into, therefore, we'll jump into this and we'll see how we get on. Now, our new topic that we're going to be considering, we're going to do, it might be a little bit bitsy, but we will I'll try my best to try and keep it all flowing reasonably well. Okay, so I'm going to post into the classroom the Nearpod code for it. It's going to appear in there very soon. He says, but my computer is now deciding to go really slowly. No, that's not you. Helps if I post it to the right classroom. That's always the key. All right, Nearpod. I posted it as Nearpod. Post. All right, now the code for this particular Nearpod is MA4G9. MA4G9, and we are going to be looking at international trade. Right? International trade. Now, there is some other aspects to this that are going to require you to do a little bit of research and a little bit of work. There is a video clip. Ideally, I would have liked to have watched it with you in person, and I might see how I can best show that to you, because it requires a little bit of explanation as well, but we will see how we get on. All right, so MA4G9, so if we could jump into the code for Nearpod, join nearpod.com. The code is, as usual, up here in the top left-hand corner. If we get lost, we can always pop it out, and I have posted it into the classroom. Good. You all arriving there. Fantastic. If the curtain is moving, it's because the kitten is playing with the curtains, in case you're... In fact, both kittens are playing with the curtains. Hopefully not going to get stuck in the curtain. No. Okay. All right, so we're going to be discussing this idea of international trade. Now, it is going to be a little bit straightforward in some aspects, because parts of this we've covered before when we've discussed other aspects of the economy, of the macro economy in particular. But other parts are going to be a little bit technical and a little bit precise. There are some aspects later on in the trade topic that are HL only, and so we're going to need to do some HL only work. Plus, we also still need to do the HL only with regards to taxation. Right? So we will do that as well. So that will be coming up too. But firstly, let's just have a wee look at international trade. We do have a site for this, and I will make sure that this is available to you. I'll see if I can post it after the classroom today, after the lesson today. So, very straightforward definitions for you. If we're seeing the word exports, we're thinking something that is going out of the port, so it is leaving the country. Our goods and services, they're being sold to people from 2 other countries. So they're leaving one country, being sold to people in another country. Imports, as we know, they're coming to the port, so they're coming into the country. Those are goods and services, they're being brought into our country. We are buying them from overseas. We might be, I don't know, buying them from Lazada or something, Amazon, and we're getting them shipped here to Malaysia, potentially. Now, there's this idea of self-sufficiency. We mentioned this when we talked about the circular flow model, and we said that if we had a circular flow model where there was no external sector, then that is in a sense called a closed economy, right? There is an old-fashioned word that says autarky, but you don't need to know that unless it comes up in old textbooks. But the other idea, the other expression is self-sufficiency. You're right, Kat? All right. No international trade is taking place because there is no external sector. It's just excluded from your circular flow. Right? The country is consuming everything it produces, and everything it consumes is produced within the country. Now, that's a situation that might be politically aimed for by some people. Right? It is definitely not something that we would suggest in the modern world is at all workable or even efficient. And we want to be more efficient. That's one of our major themes, one of our key concepts is efficiency. So what we're going to hopefully discover is that trade is going to improve efficiency. Free trade is going to be when there is no government restrictions at all on trade. You're able to import or export anything in any amounts, and there are no obstacles at all, no taxes, no restrictions of what you can import or export, no restrictions on quantity, paperwork to fill in, all of those usual sorts of paperwork sorts of ideas or costs that you might consider with regards to trade. If it's purely free trade, none of those actually are there. We do, however, consider most economies nowadays to be what's called open economies. That means they have got, in that circular flow model, there is a external sector. So they are definitely engaging with trade. It may not be entirely free, but it is definitely not closed off. All right. Now, there is a video that we can watch at some point with regards to the benefits of international trade. We won't. It looks like this. Now, you've seen these before. This is the Marginal Revolution University YouTube channel. They have an awful lot of videos, and they're all really well done. So if you haven't already bookmarked the Marginal Revolution University YouTube channel, please do. They also online, you can go to them online, and they have their videos from YouTube, but they also have like worksheets and explainers that go along with them. So it's quite a good extra revision tool. It's not IB related directly, and it will sometimes cover material that is beyond IB, but it is still very useful. Now, right, what they're talking here in this video, I worry about playing the video. The video actually is there, but if I play the video, I worry that I'm going to upset all of the internet. You know what I mean? That the streaming won't work. Right, let's just jump back to the meet here. Shall I try and play the video? What do you think?
Try it. Try it. Yeah, try it.
Okay. Let's see. All right, so apologies if this crashes everybody's internet. I'm really, really sorry. All right, but we'll try. Coming through.
benefits of voluntary trade are obvious. Suppose this guy has bananas, and this guy has oranges. He needs oranges for marmalade, and this guy needs bananas for banana bread. They swap, they exchange. Each guy is made better off through trade. In our last video, though, we saw that a key fact about the modern world involves more than simple exchange, more than merely moving existing things around. We grew rich by also producing more stuff per person. Say you're cooking hamburgers and fries for your family. It might take an hour for you to prepare the meal because you individually do everything. You start the grill, you cook the burgers, chop the fries, slice the vegetables, on and on and on. But now look at how a burger joint makes hamburgers. Each worker has a specific job in the chain of production that serves burgers and fries to its customers. Each worker is specialized. This specialization, what Adam Smith called the division of labor, makes individual workers more productive. No more lost time switching between tasks. Plus, as a worker concentrates his effort, he gets better at doing the task at hand. But it's not just the specialization of workers that increases output. It's also the development of specialized tools that modern workers use. The burger joint has tools to slice potatoes, to cook burgers, and to fry the fries. That's just specialization 101. I'm sure you've seen one of these around, the container. They're everywhere. Cargo transported by ship used to be stored in barrels, in sacks, in wooden crates, and offloaded by hand. The invention of the container, though, created more than just a metal box to put stuff in. With it came a wave of specialized technology that dramatically increased the productivity of shipping and offloading. Ships themselves evolved, dwarfing their predecessors with the ability to stack containers below and on the deck. Ports changed too, dredging deep waters and providing specialized pilots and gantry cranes to quickly park and unload ships. Driverless yard tractors magically whisk containers away. The containers are put on trucks and trains built specifically to hold them. Workers today are superhuman compared to their brethren of yesteryear. We went from carrying bags on our backs to lifting the equivalent of 2 school buses with mere flicks of our wrists. To make specialization worthwhile, you need to make a lot of stuff. For example, there's no point specializing in hamburgers if you plan to cook only 1 burger a week, or buying a forklift or a crane simply to unload weekly groceries from the family car. Trade provides a market big enough to make it worthwhile to invest in specialization. And the bigger the market, the more we specialize, and hence, the more we can produce. But specialization doesn't stop there. In our next video, we'll explore the specialization of the most productive engine known to humankind, the human mind. What about the videos after that? Well, you decide. You tell us what topics we should cover. Here's the current leaderboard of questions from our viewers.
All right. Now, that was about trade, specifically about the division of labor that is going to enable trade potentially to occur. So if we jump into the question then, what does the division of labor not lead to an increase of? So that's not, right? What does it not lead to an increase of? All right, so have a guess. Here we go, got some answers coming in. More answers coming in. It's always trickier when it's a not question, as opposed to when it's a what is this? Good work, team, with that. My word. Well done. I think we've only got another couple left to have a go. All right, good, well done. Good. The answer is prices, okay? So when we're talking about the division of labor, it does not lead to increase. It does not increase prices. It will potentially increase the level of production, increase the level of productivity, skills, quality, yeah, it's an argument, and opportunities to trade. And that's one of the important ones considering our topic. Right. Why might specialization be so good in economics, but also so good for a country's economy? So individuals who focus on that narrow range of tasks that we saw, it means that there is more training possible, more education and experience. It means their skills should increase, higher productivity or output per hour, maybe output per worker per hour, possibly as well, allowing for the worker to earn a higher wage, and they are now becoming more valuable to the employer. Now, we see this all the time, and as correctly mentioned in the video, Adam Smith came up with this idea, and Wenhao will be able to tell you about the Pin Factory, right, which is the case study in his book, The Wealth of Nations, where he outlined exactly how specialization and the division of labor enabled there to be increases in productivity in particular. If you focus then on a few products, so the specialization of production, right? So businesses, instead of trying to produce everything, just focus on a few things, they're then able to gain from economies of scale, which we've looked at a long time ago, microeconomic concept. And that means that you're going to have a lower cost of producing each unit of output. Your average costs fall as you increase production. And what happens with that is you are able to see the scale increasing by sometimes almost an unbelievable level. And the boats that you saw, ships, the container ships that you saw in the video clip, each one getting bigger and bigger and able to carry more and more containers. That sort of idea is a huge economy of scale gain. Countries are able to specialize by combining trade with increased consumption in their own country. And you will know this, and we've discussed this already before, but countries will specialize, and there will be countries like, say, Singapore, which have particular resources that they specialize with regards to production. And then you'll find countries like Hong Kong, you'll find countries like Malaysia with the palm oil. You know, what sorts of major products can we specialize in order to help develop our country? Eventually, we're going to hope that just like our circular flow model showed us, just like our GDP equation showed us, that when we increase trade, we should see an increase in economic growth. That's the hope, right? So having imports will allow us to have cheaper and better raw materials, the components, the ingredients that we need for production. So that should decrease our costs. Capital equipment, new, different capital equipment, maybe cheaper capital equipment, again, increasing productivity, more labor. The idea that you could import labor from, I don't know, New Zealand, okay, in order to bring them in to increase production, to free up domestic labor for other jobs, or just to increase productivity in certain sectors, creating extra output. Productivity increases. Larger markets, by importing but also by exporting, we're going to get more bigger markets, and you're going to be able to sell more, you're going to be able to earn greater revenue, there will be more investment opportunities, more research and development. I mean, you've got to change your entire production process, potentially. I don't know if I've told you the story about New Zealand and sheep at all. Let me jump back to the meat. Now, apologies if I've told you this story before, but New Zealand used to produce, and still does, produce a lot of sheep, okay, and sells it overseas. And it took New Zealand a while to work out that the way New Zealanders eat sheep might be different from the way the rest of the world eats sheep, yeah? And so what New Zealand had to do was to tailor its production process in order to be able to make the sales that it needed to make in those other countries. Classic case was Japan. New Zealand wanted to send its sheep to Japan for them to eat, okay? But the Japanese didn't like the taste. New Zealand sheep tasted funny, and they couldn't, and New Zealand, well, it's sheep. All sheep taste the same, but apparently not. Because in Japan, the sheep eat grain, right? Because they don't have big, expensive farms. They're not eating grass, they're eating grain. And the sheep in New Zealand, they're on the big, expensive farms, and they're eating grass. And apparently, grass-fed sheep taste different to grain-fed sheep. I did not know that. Yeah, was not aware of that myself. But apparently that's the case. So New Zealand had to figure out how to sell or market their products in the other country using the taste idea, grain-fed or grass-fed as opposed to grain-fed, and make it distinctive enough that the Japanese would like to buy it. The other one was obviously selling to the Middle East. New Zealand wanted to sell its sheep to the Middle East, but it had a wee problem with selling its sheep to the Middle East. Okay, because New Zealanders back then, at any rate, didn't know about halal. They didn't know how to, cut the meat in accordance with Islamic traditions. They had no idea. Right? So New Zealand, at one point, have I told you this story already? No? It's a little bit of a sad story, so apologies in advance. Monday morning, sad story. Okay. So what New Zealand decided to do was, because we didn't know how to do the, halal butchery stuff, okay? So instead what they did is they just piled all of the sheep in the boat and sent the boat all the way to the Middle East, and so that they could then have the sheep themselves and kill them themselves, and that way we wouldn't have to worry about it. Meant that they got the sheep a bit cheaper as well, potentially too, because there's less processing involved. However, as you might have already guessed, the journey from New Zealand, the bottom of the world, all the way to the Middle East took quite a long time, and along the way, some of the sheep died, okay, because it was a long trip. Of course, when it then arrived in the Middle East, the people in the Middle East said, we don't want the sheep anymore, because some of the sheep in it died, and it, affects the other sheep. Okay, you might know this better than I. So they wouldn't accept the order at all. So New Zealand goes, okay, well, what do we do with this then? And so they ended up turning the boat back around and sending the boat all the way back to New Zealand. And yes, those of you playing the game at home, which is everybody, you've worked out what happened was even more of the sheep died on the way home. So it was kind of like this sad ship that's sailing around the world with a whole lot of dead sheep in it, which was pretty awful. And New Zealand lost an awful lot of money on it. And then there were protests about the treatment of the animals, all of this sort of idea. So New Zealand then had to figure out how to manufacture or butcher the meat with using halal practices so that it could actually end up selling to those countries who were desperate for the product. And eventually they did, right? But it did take them a little while. So that was that story. The idea that you need to tailor your trading practices in order to be able to sell into the larger markets. It will lead to specialization of labor, more capital, again, economies of scale because of the size of the market, and obviously productivity again. So all of this, we hope, is going to lead to an increase in economic growth. And we see that, remember the circular flow model, increasing in size or ballooning out, or potentially see the aggregate demand curve shifting out, right? See a rise in the GDP figures, etc. Now here's a wee diagram here, and it might be, hopefully you can see it clearly enough. I debated including this one, but I thought, yeah, we'll have a go. All right, now it's income and trade from 1945 to 2014. So these are all the different countries here. These are obviously the percentages here, annual percentage change, all right, here, and then average annual change in real GDP, so that's up there. All right, these are the countries, these are the color key codes for the different countries, because you can't see the labels. So have a look at that and see if you can figure something out, right, from looking at that diagram. I'll give you about 30 seconds to have a look at the diagram, and then the question will follow. All right. Okay. Okay, so I'm just hearing my son in the background. All right. Oops. George, go back. Sorry, the question was there. I didn't put it on another. Sorry, apologies. Back in. All right. So what conclusions can you draw from this diagram? What is this diagram attempting to show you? Still hearing my son in the background. What is the diagram attempting to show you? What do we think?
Is it the higher the annual change in GDP, the more exports there are in proportion to the GDP?
Yeah, that's an idea. It's an idea. It's an idea. It's correlation versus causation potentially, but it's still something that we're trying to analyze. The more you export, the higher the annual change in GDP. Yes, that's what they are attempting to show you. Yes, absolutely right. Well done. That the more exports that there are over time, you should then see a higher annual change in GDP. Yes, a direct relationship. That's what they're attempting to say. Harley John. All right. Okay, it's getting a bit silly. Right, now back to the diagram here. There it is. Yes, so they're attempting to show that relationship between the amount of exports and the income that you are possibly able to earn from it. And particularly with this time period, as you see, obviously after the Second World War, leading up to 2014. And then it's country specific. So you can actually make some analysis also maybe with the individual countries. Wow. Now there's another video on this one. Apologies again. I will try to, if I do it to all of your devices, let's see if this works. Right, okay, let's try it. Is this working? Is it coming up on your screen?
Yes.
Yep.
In our last video, we covered how specialization in our work allows us as an economy to produce more. But each of us also specializes in how we use our minds. There's much to know that each of our brains has a very limited capacity to store and to process knowledge. So it makes sense to divide the tasks of processing knowledge across many different brains. We then trade the products of our knowledge. Take medicine as an example. Science-based medicine took off in the 19th century, springing from advances in biology, physics, chemistry, and math, as well as from Darwin's theory of evolution. Early specialties included dermatology, gynecology, and pediatrics. This branching continues with more recent specialties like pediatric hematology and female pelvic reconstructive surgery. In fact, this specialization has played an important role in my own life. When my son Thomas was 2 years old, he contracted a very serious digestive ailment. We took him to his pediatrician. The pediatrician couldn't diagnose it. He eventually wound up losing 20% of his body weight. Poor kid was really skinny. He spent a month in the hospital. Eventually, it took a specialist, a pediatric gastroenterologist. Dr. Howard Bostwick is his name. He wasn't just a pediatrician. He wasn't just a gastroenterologist. He's someone who specialized in studying the digestive ailments of young children. And he applied that specialized knowledge to the task of saving my son's life. And it worked. So today, my son Thomas is 17. He's healthy, thriving, but he's alive only because I'm convinced of this incredible specialization of knowledge that we were able to take advantage of. If you could choose what illness to get, would you choose a rare disease or a common one? Assuming the diseases are of similar severity, you surely want the common one. Having a common illness means that there's likely enough demand for treatment that someone will specialize in treating it. A similar principle was at play with my son. Dr. Bostwick could specialize because of the huge number of people who live in New York or who can travel there for treatment. It's only because of trade that this specialization occurs. The bigger the market, the more potential patients there are for suppliers of highly specialized medical services. If Dr. Bostwick lived in a small town, he wouldn't be able to make a living as a pediatric gastroenterologist. He'd have to be a general practitioner. In a world without specialized doctors, my son might not be alive today. As Adam Smith said, the size of the market matters. The greater the number of potential trading partners, the more each of us can specialize. In a vast market such as the United States, almost all of our exchange is done with highly skilled, highly specialized, and hence highly productive partners. Specialization exists everywhere you look. Organic chicken farmers, Bikram yogurt teachers, Android app developers, political speechwriters, corporate speechwriters, Asian fusion chefs, ice sculptors, and modelers of recursive dynamic linear economies. I could go on practically without end, but you get the point. Every one of us reaps great benefits from trading with other specialized minds. This division of knowledge leads not only to higher productivity at producing existing goods and services, but it also spurs innovation. In our next video, we'll sum up some of what we learned and talk about the beauty of cooperation and comparative advantage.
All right. Now, where am I? Here. All right, what was the main point of the video? Here we go. Main point of the video. Well done. There. Very good. Excellent. And this is something, again, it's that idea of specialization, and you've probably seen this in your life many, many, many times over. I know we have, yeah. From my son, with the specialist medical treatment he receives and needs to continue to receive. My brother-in-law, who's a specialist, you know, the people who do the, what are they, anesthesiologists, those people? Well, he's a specialist anesthesiologist. So he's an anesthesiologist, but he specializes in children with regards to anesthetic, and he also specializes in children with special needs. So that's quite a specialty. The other day I went to see a specialist about my shoulder, and I just went to a regular orthopedic surgeon dude, and he said to me that although he is an orthopedic surgeon, he's not an expert in shoulders. So I then had to go and see a shoulder expert orthopedic surgeon dude. All right, so that was, you know, good. And then now I'm going again on Friday to a different person who is another specialist, but this other specialist is to give me a second opinion. All right, so we see this sort of thing every day. The idea of specialization, the idea of specialization of productivity, but also specialization of knowledge. And you can even do things like the production processes like the blockchain sort of system, which is again, specializing, but able to link together all of the individual brains, if you will. All right. The answer was that trade led to larger markets, which allows for specialization. Now, again, thinking about how we might illustrate this, you've got a circular flow model, you've got the ADAS diagram, you've got just the computation with regards to GDP, but we've also got the PPC diagram. Now, it's a while since you've probably reflected on the PPC diagram, so just to refresh this in our mind, and this will be I think this is the last thing that we'll do today. There is a PPC diagram, and we're familiar with this idea that it is the maximum possible combinations of these two goods, might be capital and consumer goods, or just good A and good B, whichever one it is. And by increasing what it is possible to produce, we increase our productive capacity. And so that is the shift outwards of production. Consumption, however, lies outside of the PPC. So we can't get this level, whatever this level is of this good and this good, we can't reach it because of our domestic production. So the only way we're going to be able to get this particular level of consumption is by trade, right? And what happens is that we're actually going to specialize in the production of one of these goods. And when we specialize, we end up at the extreme end. Okay, so either of these two, depending which one we specialize in. And we're producing however many that is, so that might be 1,000 units of this. And because we don't consume domestically all 1,000, we might only consume half that. So we then have half of it to trade. And so we sell half of it, and that allows us to gain a quantity of good B. Okay, so therefore, because of trade, we're going to be able to consume beyond our PPC, beyond what it is that is possible to produce for ourselves domestically. Now, we used to, in the past, we used to actually draw what's called a consumption possibility curve, right? Illustrating the idea that we're able to consume beyond PPC. Now, that's quite a complicated diagram, but one that should be, we should be okay with. Obviously, if we reduce trade, then the PPC curve shifts inwards. I'm trying to remember if that's all. Right, we're going to stop there for the day. Let's jump back to the meat. Right, so this introduction to trade is dealing with the ideas about what trade is and why it might be of benefit. And also I'm trying to get you to remember to link it to the models. Right, so in your analysis, thinking about the PPC curve, thinking about the ADAS model, thinking about the computation, the actual calculation GDP-wise, maybe thinking about a circular flow model potentially as well, all of which can be used to illustrate trade and the benefits potentially of trade. All right, so keeping all of that in mind. Now, there are a few of you who are going to need to do a little bit more work on your presentations for tomorrow. That's fantastic, and yeah, if you can have a go at that. The rest of you, if you can please be reviewing the material we're covering today. If there are worksheets that you still need to finish off from the other week, if you can finish those off. Otherwise, as we'd say in the land of my birth, that is us for the day. Hei kōrera. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you, sir.
Stop
Thank you.
recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.